Welcome to my YouTube channel, One Race Human Race All Human. Today is Thursday, May 5th, 2022. Politics 101. Tie all the Republicans who supported Putin to what's going on in Ukraine.
Vipassana. Overnight, 6 people were injured in a missile strike in the city of Kramatorsk. At least 3 buildings were significantly damaged, including a kindergarten. Let's go straight to Kramatorsk in eastern Ukraine and bring in CNN's Sam Kiley. Sam, you are right there on the front lines in eastern Ukraine. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Well, Alex and Brianna, here in central Kramatorsk, we heard the missile strikes at about 3:34 in the morning, and this is the results of them. Trees decapitated by the blast, absolutely extraordinary amount of ordnance in terms of the size of the warhead that must have been dropped here. This building behind me, now in ruins, was the kind of pumping and sewage station for this residential area. It could not have been big enough to hold any kind of military assets, but it has been completely destroyed, and indeed they're been digging out the sewage plant. But the scale of the blast is quite extraordinary, and so is, frankly, the effort being made to clean up already. I mean, it's just a few hours ago that these impacts were felt, ripping through these residential buildings. And I've been on the other side of these.
Bring an ad where you show the Republican Party members who are holding up Putin signs in the past and supporting Putin, and you make them denounce what's going on in Ukraine every day. Keep on reminding people. You had those elected officials went to Russia a few years ago. We're sitting there at the table there, and it had Flynn there also, as well as others. The tapes are there, videos there. You have to explain to the American public what's going on and why it's going on.
Buildings, they look the same on this side next to the blast as they do on the other side. The blast simply rushed clean through these buildings, tearing them to pieces. Mercifully, there were 25 people have been wounded across the city in 3 different locations. There was also a blast quite close to the administrative headquarters. There's only been 6 people hospitalized and 1 person is critical. That's in stark contrast to the last time Kramatorsk was hit in earnest about a month ago, when the railway station was struck by a surface-to-surface missile, a long-range missile, probably similar to the one that landed here. That killed at least 50 people waiting to try to evacuate from this city. As a consequence, though, of the evacuations, the toll in terms of wounded and dead from these, frankly, atrocities. This is deliberate targeting with not dumb bombs. This was not an attack that came from an aircraft. This was clearly a surface-to-surface missile, and the range would indicate that they're guided missiles, not the stupid missiles, if you like, of multiple rocket launching system, but much more likely the guided missiles that are available to the Russians, such as Iskander and
This is barbaric. It is wrong. It is ungodly. The 2 greatest commands say, love God, love your neighbor as yourself. This is not neighborly. It's atrocious. And you need to remind the American public of that, and the people who have supported this type of behavior and who still support it in American politics, and shine a light on those people. As Joe Scarborough said today on Morning Joe on Thursday, May 5th, 2022. Go back and take a look at that.
Well, in that context, therefore, this is a deliberate act against Kramatorsk, which, Alex and Brendan, is really the strategic prize for the Russians. If they can capture this town, from as far as the Putin administration is concerned, it may be a possibility that they could then believe that they've achieved some kind of a victory and maybe stop their advance at this point. But they are at least 25 kilometers away to the north. They're pushing down in various salients around. They're also trying to come in from the east. They've had moderate success and some losses around Kharkiv, but this is the ongoing part of their campaign. Pound the civilian areas into submission and then try to occupy the ashes.
Yeah, I'm so glad you make that point. They're essentially, assuming that is a missile strike, as you expect it to be, they're dialing in the coordinates like you would in a GPS to get to a destination. This isn't an accident. That is the target. We've seen that time and again. We were speaking to a retired U.S. general, Sam, about where the Russians are, how they're doing right now in the East. And he said he is kind of surprised at how poorly they're doing at this moment in time. What's the word there, though, on the ground with folks that you're talking to?
Well, it's touch and go. I think both sides are fairly equally matched at the moment. I'm just going to try and move away from that grinder that's operating. Both sides are relatively evenly matched, which is why you've got this stasis, this ongoing exchange backwards and forwards of artillery. The Ukrainians are firing a lot of artillery back at the Russian positions. The Russians inching towards this location. They're close to overrunning several towns on the other side of the Donetsk River, but they haven't been able to break through, and that's the key strategic moment that analysts are looking for. Will they stop their advance at the river, or will they try to push across? But that said, the Ukrainians cannot prevail, they say, until they get these new weapons that have been promised from NATO, from the United States, Germany, Britain, and others. In particular, the very sophisticated artillery systems that can effectively spot the location of the firing point of incoming artillery and respond in more than kind. That would be something that the Russians really don't have anything to match, and that would give them the tactical edge and possibly even a significant strategic advantage. And on top of that, of course, they want the capability to take out these surface-to-surface missiles, cruise-type missiles, but also the less sophisticated Iskander-type missiles that can be shot down with American, British, Israeli-type technologies. There's a little bit of that coming in, but those again would be game changers. At the moment, though, the assumption is that over the coming week the Russians are going to try and step up their campaign. This may be their last throw of the dice before those NATO and other Western NATO-style weapons, which frankly simply are in a different league in terms of their technical superiority to what we've seen deployed by the Russians. And that is something I think the Western analysts have been surprised by, the extent to which the Russian armed forces have proved to be something of a paper tiger. Lots of international boasting online about hyper missiles and all sorts of almost science fiction capabilities, but on the ground it's pretty grinding Soviet-style, low-level, low-tech stuff. I mean, right down to their radios, which are readily intercepted here because they're pretty much entirely analog. They don't even have digital secure communications.
Which is one of the ways that the Ukrainians have been able to be so effective against Ukrainian Russian generals. Sam, just seeing you there in front of that building, we've said it before, it looks just like what the Russians did in Chechnya, what they've done in Syria. This is a tried and tested tactic of theirs, one that is very simple, very effective, and absolutely ruthless. And here we are just 4 days before this victory day in Moscow, with all kinds of questions about what President Putin will announce on that day. Sam Kiley in the eastern city of Kramatorsk, thank you so much for that report. Stay safe, my friend.
You mentioned those
It's barbaric.
generals, right? Because also this morning, U.S. officials believe it